Good morning, everybody. Just so you know that the video has started recording and it picks up every little background noise, including keystrokes off your keyboard if you're multitasking. So if everybody could mute their line unless they're speaking, that would be really appreciated. Trying to keep the file size down. If you do not wish to be on video, that would be fantastic. If not, that's your choice. Other than that, if you have any questions or need anything, let me know.
Thanks so much, Robin. I'm going to stay on video just here at the beginning since I'm starting the show off. We have a couple of changes within our Conservation Advisory Group membership that I wanted to kind of introduce to the team here. And then we have a couple of folks who I think are unable to attend as well. So I believe Sean Collins is not able to join us today. So we'll make sure Alan Spector and I will make sure to follow up with him after our meeting the next week or two, just to tie out on a couple of items that we're going to be addressing, because we will be going in depth on the low-income program today from a couple of perspectives, primarily looking at the last year's accomplishments and then our conservation potential assessment and how we're addressing the low-income sector within that CPA. Outside of that, I would like to mention that Becky Walker from NIA has accepted a role as a director within NIA, so her time's a little bit limited and she's probably not going to be able to attend our meetings regularly like she did previously. In the meantime, she's asked Emily to participate with us here. So Emily, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? Not to put you on the spot first thing.
Oh, no worries. And I'll turn to my camera for a moment because I don't know all of you. I'm Emily Rosenblum, so I joined NIA last summer on the natural gas team, and I'm currently focused on commercial HVAC. Previously, I was at ClearResult in PCI, working on new construction and retrofit programs, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks, Emily. Please do ask if you've got any questions as we go through it. We love talking about ourselves, honestly. So more than happy to give any context, and I'm happy to follow up with you as well later if you have anything that you had kind of pending questions in the background.
Thank you, Monica.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining.
Yep.
And then from Commerce, I'm not sure. I don't know if I see Liz. Were you able to make the call? Maybe Liz will call in a little bit later. Robin, do you have her email address? We might just forward her the link for this first one or send her I don't know if we can invite her to the call or anything.
Yes, I can invite her from the call.
Okay, go ahead and give that a try since the first time I'm not sure if she was able to get in. So. Well, and then I guess we'll just kind of go around the virtual table. Obviously, I'm Monica, Cascade Natural Gas. I manage our energy efficiency and community outreach programs. I believe everybody should know my role. I'm going to go alphabetically here. Amy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Amy Wheelis. I'm with the Northwest Energy Coalition.
Thank you, Amy. Carrie?
Good morning. Cascade Energy Efficiency Supervisor.
Thank you, Carrie. Mark Childs?
Good morning, everyone. Mark Childs, Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and Customer Service for Cascade.
Good morning, Mark. Ashton.
Hi, everyone. This is Ashton, and I'm with Cascade's Resource Planning Team.
Thanks, Ashton. Brady.
Hi, Brady Day with TRC Companies. We manage the commercial industrial program for energy efficiency.
Thank you, Brady. Chris Fork.
Good morning, Chris Fork, Energy Efficiency Analyst and Outreach Coordinator for Cascade Natural Gas.
Thank you, Chris. Philip?
Good morning, everyone. This is Philip Hensel. I'm the Lead Economic Analyst for the EE Department.
Thank you, Philip. Gil? You might be muted, Gil.
Thank you. Sorry. So Gil Peach, I'm an energy person and a water person, and interested in climate stuff and all that. And We just finished a decoupling study for the company.
Thank you for joining us, Gil. I know you've got a lot of background with the low-income sector evaluations as well, so we're very excited to have you on the call. Thank you for joining.
Thanks.
Sheila.
Sheila McElhinney. I'm the Senior Analyst for the Energy Efficiency Department at Cascade Natural Gas.
Thank you, Sheila. Devin.
Devin McGreal, Senior Resource Planning Analyst on the Resource Planning side here with Cascade.
Thanks, Devin. Taylor.
Taylor Mead. I'm the Media and Support Specialist for Cascade Natural Gas.
Thank you, Taylor. And then I'm going to let Jocelyn Moore introduce herself as well. And I would like to mention that Jocelyn is our newest official Cascade Natural Gas employee. She's joined our team. She actually has been working with us in a temporary status for the last couple months. And we're really, really happy to have her on board officially with Cascade as of this month. Jocelyn?
Good morning, Jocelyn Moore. I am a support specialist, so I'm providing a lot of administrative support to the team in the Energy Efficiency Department.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Eli.
Good morning. This is Eli Morris at Applied Energy Group, Managing Director and Project Director for the Conservation Potential Assessment that we're performing for Cascade.
Thank you, Eli. And Mike?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Mike Parvinen. I'm the Director of Regulatory Affairs for Cascade.
Thank you, Mike. Andrew.
Yo, Andrew Rector, Washington UTC staff.
Thank you, Andrew. Brian?
Hey, this is Brian Robertson, Supervisor of Resource Planning with Cascade.
Thanks, Brian. Mark Sellers-Vaughn.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Sellers-Vaughn, Manager of Supply Resource Planning for Cascade.
Good morning, Mark. Alan.
I'm Alan Spector, Energy Efficiency Policy Manager for Cascade Natural Gas.
Thank you, Alan. And John.
Good morning. This is John Storvik. I'm an energy efficiency analyst with the EE department. I'm also the Builder Program Coordinator.
Thank you, John. And Ken.
Good morning. This is Ken Walter. I'm Project Manager with AEG and managing Cascade's CPA this round.
Thank you, Ken. And then Robin, please.
Good morning, I'm Robin White, and I am the Energy Efficiency Operations Support Specialist.
Thank you, Robin. I think I got everyone. If I missed you, please do speak up, let me know.
Hi, Monica. This is Mark Thompson, Forefront Economics. Good morning, everyone. And I'm with the Gil Peach team. We just completed the decoupling review.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I missed you.
Oh, I just joined. I was late. My bad.
You snuck in on me.
I snuck in on you.
Great. Nice to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I'm gonna first. I'm gonna take myself off video since I promised I would. Have to keep looking at my face. And then I think we will jump into our review of the Q1 meeting notes. You should be seeing my screen here. I'm just showing the agenda for right now. Last quarter, we were really excited to be able to offer a new feature for our programs. Robin sent out the email following our meeting. So our meeting notes have been consolidated down to a synopsis format, so it's a little bit shorter format, which is a lot of detail, and it also helps us with kind of highlighting the most important areas, right? So we're going to provide that as well this time. It'll be the synopsis document about the meeting notes. And then in addition to that, we actually now have video of the videos in case you, videos of the meeting, in case you want to go back and really review a section or if you weren't available for the meeting. So one thing is when we're able to tie out with Sean later, we'll be able to actually forward him a link to those meetings, and he can listen to the conversation. And if he has any questions, follow up with us then. We did send the link to the CAG previously, so I can click on the link here, but I'm also going to just walk you through really quickly how to access it from our website if you'd like to. We're committed to now posting this to our website moving forward, so you should have easy access to any of the CAG notes or video moving forward. And I think that's a great advancement to our ability to provide the detail. I know it's been hard for some people to actually access it via an email or find it later or whatever. So big kudos to Robin for moving us into the future, I should say. We tend to travel at a snail's pace. So thank you so much, Robin. I'm excited to be able to provide this new format, and hopefully it works for everybody. So I'm going to quickly share the website here and just show you how to get to it. You should be seeing my website. Please let me know, somebody, if you are seeing it.
I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it, Monica.
Perfectly,
Yeah,
thank you. Great. All right, so this is just Cascades, CNGC.com. You can go straight to energy efficiency at the top of the page here. Scroll on down to your environmental partners. And then right on the top of the screen, we have Conservation Advisory Group meetings. You can click there, and then here's the videos. I believe, Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know we have 2 videos here. I think we talked about maybe having a single video moving forward. I could be incorrect in that. Either way, you'll be able to access them. Robin also has the agenda will be listed here, and then we'll have our meeting minutes. And I believe you also had the video transcript timestamp document, which is noted down here. So you can actually review what the different topics were and click on the specific time or find that specific time within the video. So it should be really quick and easy to access. And please give us any feedback that you have on it moving forward if you have any questions. In the meantime, I will go ahead and pull up I'm going to stop sharing that because I've already pulled up the other document. And we'll just look really briefly at the meeting notes from last quarter. I think I have them saved here. Actually, let me stop talking for a second and ask if there's any questions or feedback from anybody as I pull this data up.
Hey, Monica, this is, oh, Gary, sorry.
I was just going to say I don't think I had anything specific to note or anything. I thought that the new format for the agenda, what do you call it, the minutes was good. I didn't get a chance to look at the video and see how that worked out, but yeah. Anyway.
That's great feedback. Thank you, Andrew. Is there someone else?
Sorry, yeah, this is Brady. I was just wondering if you could forward the agenda for today's meeting. I don't think I have it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry, Brady.
That's okay. Thank you.
I can take care of that.
Thank you, Robin. I was going to ask if you could do that. So I'm back to the agenda. I was going to show everybody the meeting notes from last time. For some reason, it doesn't want to let me. I had them up earlier. Oh, here we go. Okay. So you should be seeing the Q1 notes here. So we actually talked about the conservation potential assessment, kind of where we were at as of Q1. So we had obviously completed phase 1 already. We were working into phase 2, had conversations with AEG, and thankfully we've got both Ken and Eli on the phone with us today from AEG, and we'll be going through another status update on where the conservation potential assessment is, and talking about some of the key takeaways that we're seeing so far, as well as the low-income sector analysis that we had performed this year. So I'm excited to have that conversation here in a few minutes. I had an action item as well based on benchmarking prep for the HB 1257 to talk to Becky Walker to understand the CBSA, how it might be able to assist Cascade with identifying customers who fall under that Clean Building Act requirement. And I did touch base with Becky and internally, and Emily, of course, please speak up if I'm misquoting here. But my understanding was that the CPA probably wouldn't be able to help us identify because it wasn't it wasn't specific to the utility sectors. So Becky certainly offered to follow up if we needed further, but didn't think that it would be the best tool to help us identify which properties were going to be required to follow the Clean Building Act requirements.
Yep, that sounds correct.
Okay, thank you, Emily. So we also just talked about our tariff filing and how it was filed and the different aspects that were addressed within that tariff filing. Nothing further on that right now. That's already been addressed. We're well on our way to using the new tariff. We talked about goal setting in the biennial plan. Nothing really further there unless anybody has any questions. We also talked about, of course, the quarter 4 update. How did Cascade do at the end of quarter 4? We're actually going to be addressing a little bit of that today as we're talking about our annual report and where we're at with the process. So I probably don't need to go too far in depth unless anyone has specific questions on the quarter 4 update. And of course, we'll be giving you a quarter 1 update for activities January through March this year. So we're doing well. We're progressing. Then we had our commercial industrial adaptive management discussion. Brady Day is on the phone now as well, so I'm sure he can provide any feedback if we need it. But nothing huge outside of saying that we're really pivoting as we need to. We're in the midst of those recovery plans, and we can talk about that a little more as we move forward. But that's kind of what we were talking about last meeting, is what steps were we taking as we moved into the new year to address the businesses and the needs post COVID, recognizing, of course, that COVID is still a very real thing, and we're obviously not past it yet, but planning towards the future. We talked about Cascade's internal EM&D plan and timeline. We can touch base on that a little bit today as well, probably at the end of the meeting in the other category. We were talking about brainstorming opportunities to work with Commerce. We're hoping that Liz would be on the call, or maybe she'll be able to join us a little bit later, and then we can kind of touch base on some future opportunities for brainstorming with Commerce as well. And then low-income weatherization, of course, had a conversation last time. We'll address the current status of the low-income programs. And then we talked about the meeting schedule as well. So any questions on the quarter 1 notes? All right, great. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that. And we'll just go back to the agenda. And then I think we're going to jump in. Please let me know, are you seeing the current agenda?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. All right, so I think we're on the low-income weatherization discussion. Alan, would you like to take the reins?
Sure. And Sheila, feel free to jump in as well if anything jumps out at you. But I'll just talk briefly about our achievements for quarter 1. We had 9 homes served so far, with about 34 measures installed, and seems to be on track so far. I'll let Sheila talk a little bit about what she's observed so far for the first quarter, and then I'll jump into our 2020 achievements.
Alrighty. Well, we've had good uptake this quarter. We've completed 9 jobs. There's about 15 in the hopper though. So I'm receiving an application about once a week from our 12 agencies, one of 12. And I have an update for Chelan Douglas Community Action. They are poised to start participating with the Cascade Whippy Whip program. And it's really good because we've never gotten a job from them before. So they had some staff changes, and sort of the regular high-performing agencies are still the ones that you all know about, like Opportunity Council and Kitsap Community Resources. But yeah, I think it's going very well, and I'm surprised that we've been able to keep the momentum going as well as we have. But I'm happy that it's working out. That's all I have, Alan. Thank you.
Yep, I would say, yeah, especially in light of COVID, I think we've all just been very impressed with the agencies and how they've been able to continue serving homes and, continuing to engage and, having well, not new agencies, but having agencies who hadn't previously participated in the program reach out to us. We've certainly appreciated that and have been glad to partner and expand partnership. So for 2020, 43 homes were served, which all things considered, I think was a pretty good number. 169 measures installed. Program costs and administration were about as we expected them to be. So it wasn't really any surprises per se. Things are going along pretty well. Obviously, toward the start of the year, there was a freeze due to COVID, so things really didn't thaw out at all until, fairly late in the year. I would say, mid to late summer, even later, into the fall. And so I think there's some projects that agencies had anticipated completing that they weren't able to in 2020 that we could see potentially this year. And then just in terms of homes being served overall, like I said, we were very impressed with their efforts and very glad that they were able to safely get more low-income households served. And so one thing that we're looking toward doing this year, and Sheila may have already reached out to the agencies. We had talked to them about it during the December meeting, but we have a marketing fund, as you know, that we utilize every year. About $20,000 set aside for co-branded marketing for the low-income weatherization program. I mean, we'll leverage our bill inserts, but we'll also help with signage, with radio advertising, newspaper, anything that the agencies think will have a good impact and get more customers aware of the services available to them. Well, because of COVID, the agencies weren't reaching out to customers. There wasn't a need at that point, and they didn't want to generate. It wasn't a good time to generate more program awareness, and so now I think we're going to start to see that now, with homes that could really benefit from the weatherization services. But another piece that we're opening up to the agencies, and I think we had discussed this at the last CAG meeting, is because of COVID, there's some additional health and safety requirements for weatherizing homes. There's some trainings that the agencies need to do with their staff and contractors. And so where we're talking about training costs that are taking place outside of a single project. So if there's work, if there's something that needs to be done within the home itself, that ties to health and safety. But if it's taking place outside of a singular weatherization project, and there's a training that's needed for their crew to make sure that they're weatherizing safely under new COVID protocols, we've opened up our fund, that $20,000, that if the agency would rather have some funds toward that training, they'll be able to do that instead of the co-branded marketing, or they can do both. It's going to be first come, first serve with the $20,000. And however the agencies would like to utilize those funds, whether to reach out to customers or to use for COVID-related training, we're amenable to either. So we'll be following up with our agencies on that to make sure they're aware, but that was something that we had previously discussed with them. Yeah, Monica?
I just wanted to circle back around to the annual report part. I wanted to let Andrew know that we had remembered the conversation that we had in July, I think it was, of last year, to make sure that it's very transparent how we're allocating those costs. So that's what Alan has represented here, is the Cascade admin costs are separate from the project coordination fees that are going to the agencies, as well as the 10% indirect rate. So this specific table will be in the annual report, as will when you're looking at the spreadsheets of the actual costs and the cost effectiveness of the programs. We have those columns that we had discussed and worked through in July to make sure that they're granular enough and identifying those cost allocations as we talked about. I just wanted to circle back around on that. Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep.
Oh, I was just going to say, I appreciate that, and I'm glad you bring it up because it reminds me that I actually did have a quick question. So for 2020, is the Cascade admin, that 29,850, is that included in the 639?
Let me see here. I'm just
I didn't
got
do
it
the
up
math.
in front of me. No, I think the Cascade admin, including program outreach. I'll have to look back at the report. And Sheila, you had initially put that together. Was that included? I think it might be. I think anything that was in the general ledger, we pulled it all in, but as a separate. Yeah, actually, I think that is all together. Is that right, Sheila?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had to talk myself through it for a second, but yeah.
Alan, this 29,850 is that what Andrew's asking, if that's included in the 639,469 total?
Yeah.
It is not. It's a separate expense.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I see. Yep,
if you add up the columns, it's 639,469 above, and then Cascade's admin is an additional 29,850, and that's the time that Cascade, it's essentially labor, because there were not other expenses this year with COVID. So there wasn't meeting attendance or travel to the agencies or anything like that this year because of COVID. So it's essentially a labor cost.
Got it. I was thinking, because we did pull everything, all the expenses from the GL, including the admin staff time, that's all going to be pulled into the report and itemized out. But you're right. Yeah, that wasn't added into it in this chart that's in front of us now.
Correct. It is separate here. But when you look at that big spreadsheet, then you'll see, you'll see the separations there as well.
Okay. And then if we're on, just since we're kind of have gone back to the tables real quick, I kind of wanted to see if the difference so far in the therms per household from what we saw in 2020 versus what Q1 in 2021 has seen so far was remarkable to you at all, or if I was just kind of curious about that number since it's lower than last year so far.
And I'll let Sheila speak to that, but I think, it's still pretty early in the year. And so, it could just be that the measure mix happened to be some lighter touch measures so far, or there were fewer measures in those specific homes. It's hard to say, just in the first quarter, we could end up with more intensive weatherization jobs coming in later in the year. But I'll let Sheila speak to what she's seen so far.
Andrew, are you talking about the number of measures installed in the first quarter compared to the first quarter of 2020?
Well, I was looking more at what Monica is circling there, the therms per household, although the measures installed on kind of an annualized basis does, look like it's a little behind as well, but yeah.
Yeah, it's, I agree with Al, it's a little bit early in the year to tell what those average therms saved per household. I mean, it's sort of the luck of the draw. We don't really know what we're going to get in terms of savings, but the projects that have come in this year, some of them were 1 measure projects and some of them were 6 measure projects. So it could have brought down the therms saved per household because we've had, I don't know, there's probably 3 or 4 in that 9 homes that were just 1 measure. So all they did was a tankless.
Okay.
Or all they did was replace the furnace. But I expect it to climb up as the year progresses.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. So I think there was one more item on the agenda for low income here. Let me see. Oh, the MOU update. And that's what Sheila was alluding to, that we had a few more agencies, sign on this year, which was great. And 9 MOUs have been returned so far. And that represents just under 70 homes and about $954,000 worth of projects. But I would say that would be pretty good if we could get to that number this year, just in light of all the challenges that are still faced. But, I think that's a pretty solid number. That's not even all of the MOUs that have, that could potentially be turned in, for the total agencies that we have. And so, as we get a better sense of the number of homes served, it's going to be even higher. And I think the agencies tend to be fairly realistic in their assessment of what they can do. So I think we're in a pretty good place right now and feeling pretty comfortable. And then I'll segue a little bit. Monica is going to be talking about it, and Ken Walters from AG. But I think the information that we have coming in from the low-income market analysis will help us help the agencies better focus in on additional populations that could be served as well. So feeling pretty good this year. Like I said before, all things considered, I think we're in a pretty solid place, and we just appreciate the work that they continue to do.
Thank you, Alan. So I think that leaves us with, are there any questions up to this point? The next item on the agenda is going to be going to our conservation potential assessment, and as Alan prefaced, talking about that low income sector analysis. So we can jump in, but I did want to give a quick break here and see if there's any questions, comments on that low income discussion we've had so far. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and ask Ken and Eli to take it on from here. Are you okay if I just open up the PowerPoint, Ken, and share it from my screen?
Yeah, that's fine. I have it open on my side, so whichever works better for you.
If you're able, can you share from your screen?
It's giving me the button, so I can find out.
So give it a try, and if it doesn't work, then I'll do it. How about that?
Okay. It's at least pretending to tell me I'm sharing my screen. How's that doing? Okay.
Yep, I can see it. Nicely done.
All right. Well, Eli, do you want to just run through the agenda real quick?
Yeah, sure. So good morning again, everybody. This is Eli Morris at Applied Energy Group. So I'm just going to cover the agenda and then pass things over to Ken to get into the details. So we did move the low-income market analysis up to the front just for continuity with the previous topic. And so we're going to talk about some new analysis we did to try to segment Cascade's residential customers, provide some additional insights into how they're using energy and then how that will inform the potential when we get to residential results. And then, since not everyone may have been involved in the previous discussions we've had on phase 1 of the CPA, we're going to recover the objectives for phase 2 of the CPA. And then we'll give an update on where we are in that process for phase 2. And then we're going to share some preliminary results for the commercial and industrial sectors coming out of that analysis. So I'll turn things over to Ken.
Okay. So as Eli said, one of the things that we've worked on for this phase of the CPA is looking at the low-income market specifically, which is something we hadn't done in past rounds. It was just collective with the rest of the residential sector. And we were able to use, sort of triangulate multiple data sources to come at a picture of, first off, how many of Cascade's customers were in different income levels and geographically where they are. And there are ways of using a lot of different pieces of that. So we relied mainly on US Census data and the most recent RVSA and some information from Cascade's billing database, but we did want to be sensitive to customer privacy. This is not based on identifying any specific individual household as a specific income level. We haven't taken that down to that or looked for that information about individual customers. This is based on the U.S. Census demographic information at a very granular geo-block level. So these are neighborhood groups, and you can characterize those based on average household size and income information that's already part of the more anonymized data. But you could still map that to where Cascade's customers are, and because these are both very large databases with large sample sizes, you can get very good correlation of them. So with that grouping put together, we can take Cascade's customers that are in these areas that have been segmented and start looking at how many households are here, what's the consumption in these specific areas, and start breaking it out that way to create different characterized markets for these three groups that you see here. So we looked at 3 levels of income. What's labeled here as above median, that's everyone from the median income in Washington by household size, which we have from 1 to 8 people, most common being 3, but we have it for all levels. Anyone from there on up is in this above median category. Moderate income is in between median income, but too high for the low income assistance program. So really it's between 200% of the federal poverty level and the median income. And interesting, that is where the greatest number of households actually fall. It slightly exceeds the above median group. And then there's the classic, the basic light heap definition. The 200% poverty level on down is the low income group that's highlighted here. So the chart in the top left shows how that breaks down in terms of number of households, and we've also broken that into the different climate zones because we are modeling Cascade's residential customers at that granularity. And then below that is a table taken from RBSA data, which also collected income information about their participants. This is respondents from gas customers in the state of Washington that we were able to go through the same process of looking at household size and income as they reported anonymously. But since we have this for the state of Washington, it's the best analog to Cascade's territory. We did try and look just for Cascade customers. We had at least enough geographic information to look at that. That didn't wind up with enough of a sample size to draw any real statistics from. There's only a couple dozen customers that are really in Cascade's territory that are part of the RBSA. So we're looking at Washington gas customers in terms of our RBSA data. But a very interesting finding that we got out of that is that at least in terms of RBSA participants, and that's a very good statistical sample, lower income customers are using less gas than higher income customers. And we wanted to kind of understand why.
Ken, I'm sorry, I don't want to derail, but I know we have a question or two. Do you want those during the presentation or do you want those after?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, I can't see the hands raised, so yeah, please,
Okay,
please jump in if that's the case. Yeah, I can't see that.
Perfect. Andrew, did you have a question?
I had, excuse me, I had a couple. So I think I might have missed this, but median in this case, this is state median, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then Monica, because I can never remember, climate zone 1 is the Northwest, right? Like Bellingham, et cetera.
Correct. Yeah, climate zone 1 is the Northwest area. You got Bellingham, Skagit County, down to about Arlington.
Okay. And then 2 is the Southwest, and 3 is.
Yes, exactly. And then 2 is along the coast, and then 3 is east of the mountains. Exactly.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, I think that's what I needed to know for now.
Okay. Was there another question to get to right now?
No, that was it. The other question was actually me, and you answered it as you were talking. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew where the RBSA data came from, and that responses was not us surveying customers directly. It was specifically from the RBSA that you had pulled.
Yes.
And I think Alan might have a clarification as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll be getting into this, but you had just mentioned that the usage was lower for low income. And so I would just caveat that to say that lower usage can happen for many reasons. which we'll need to discuss and try to work through, that doesn't necessarily equate to a lower need from that customer group, that
Yes.
they could still be experiencing some form of energy poverty. There could be reasons why there's less energy being used in that home, whether they're closing off certain rooms or they're just turning off their heat in order to try to manage their expenses. And so this is a very high level look at the information. It tells us the what, but it doesn't necessarily get into the why. Would that be correct?
Exactly, and I was just about to address some of that. And I know I don't have language for it on the slide, but I wanted to kind of discuss it more qualitatively. So that's a good, thank you for that lead in.
And there is one more question. I'm sorry, Ken.
Yes.
Gil, is it relating to that part of it, or is it?
Yeah, just well, to what we've covered so far. The median here is adjusted by size of household.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just looking. Do you have like a number that you can give out as a standard median? I'm trying to get the income level.
Yeah. So I have the numbers in front of me for a 3-person household, which is the most common.
Okay.
That would be a median income of 86,794.
Okay. And then
the low income threshold for that same size household would be 43,440.
43,440. Do you have any way to relate this to poverty levels?
Yeah, that low income threshold, that's the 200% of the federal poverty level.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks. That's what I wanted to know. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you, Ken. Sorry.
That's all right. So as Alan was saying, we could see the what. We could see use per customer is lesser, and we wanted to understand why. And we dug very deep into the RBSA microdata that we could get for these customers. We looked at what are the differences in home size. That was significant and along similar lines, but by itself not enough to account for it. Moderate income homes are smaller. Low income homes are even smaller than that. Building shell, as may or may not be expected, lower income homes did show measurably lower R values on average than the above median and moderate income. So that would increase usage. So when we put some of those into our building simulations, so what we really found was that despite the smaller home, there needed to be something else to account for this lower consumption. And that gets at what Alan was talking about, is that it seems to be more of a customer decision. It's their thermostats or the amount of space that they're heating in their home isn't being done the same way that the higher income groups are. And we've had at least one discussion about that, and we're continuing to have conversations about what that is, because to kind of address that from another angle, if it's the case that this consumption is lower because that's what customers can afford to do, and they would prefer to have their homes warmer, but that's just the thermostat setting that they can afford, that is a different kind of concern or a different question to answer than simply, well, if we insulate the house, then we'll have X% savings. So yeah, we're thinking about this very qualitatively and in a lot of conversation with Cascade.
Does Gil have his, does Gil still have his hand up for?
Yeah, I guess, can you tell me how to put it down?
Just click on it again and it'll take it off.
Okay.
So Ken, this is Carrie. Are you going to do any null hypothesis about, does your scope reach to that says, really, I would say common sense would say less money equates to less disposable income for staying warm. will you be taking a look at that, or is that maybe a next step that Cascade would take?
I think that one might be more for Cascade. There's not really that much in our model that's would be affected by that,
Okay.
other than the consumption itself, which of course we're
Uh-huh.
already tracking.
Okay, thank you.
This next slide is just a quick map. It really shows where all the data points were in that US Census that we were able to pull together. It is a little blurry, for which I apologize. It's a native graphic that comes out of that software package, but the different colored dots you see overlaid correspond to the different income levels. They are a bit stacked on top of each other, but you can see, even at this level, up in the top left, you can see lots and lots of blue, which is the above median group, with some of the green moderate income group towards the northern border. But for a difference in geography, you can look center state towards the bottom and see that diagonal stripe that's mostly green and orange and just a little bit of blue. So this kind of visualizes this idea that one of the things that Cascade wanted was an understanding of where customers are. Not just how many, not just how much potential is associated with them, but getting this physical understanding of where people are and what communities are the places to be looking at and making sure that they're being reached equitably. So the next thing that I want to talk about is just how we're actually applying this information in the CPA. And I have talked about it a little bit. We are separating the potential now at the income level. So the same granularity that you've seen up front, we're applying that in addition to the granularity we already had in the residential sector, where we have it by climate zone. We have single family and multifamily homes. And now we're also going to have this distinction by income groups. We have all of the characterization adjustments that we were able to take out of the RBSA analysis, which is very thorough. So we have the differences in the building shell, which changes how applicable some measures are. Of course, you have the greater applicability of weatherization. We have differences in end use saturation. It turns out low income homes, at least through RBSA data, have somewhat higher saturation of gas space heat than the higher income groups. So you have more just physical units exist proportionally in those customers, even though they're using them a little bit less. So there's some balancing that's going on with that characterization, but it gives a lot of clarity and good data-driven differences between these customers that we can push through our model. This gives Cascade the ability to identify a share of potential that could be delivered by the community action partners as opposed to their in-house programs. And it identifies any additional opportunities that might be out there if something is coming out differently in the characterization for low or moderate income customers compared to the regular. Are there any other questions or things to address on the low income?
Does this parse out at all because you were just kind of touching on it now, but the percentage of customers that may be low income that are just reaching out to Cascade for their regular program, our regular rebate program, rather than having the awareness of the low income weatherization program, or how that might break out. Because I'm guessing there's probably a larger population of low-income customers that are just participating in our regular program, at least to a certain extent, that we may be aware of.
Yeah, that's not information that I think we'd be able to put together just with the level of visibility we have to it on our side, but we'll be able to provide you with the totals and where customers are that Cascade can compare to where their requests are coming from, and at least see if there's any disproportion there. Like if there's an area that's more made up of low income and moderate income customers, but most of the requests are still going through the regular program, that would be an indicator that maybe that community is not as aware of the low income program as they could be.
And I think that Gil, might have a question as well.
Yeah, this analysis seems to be, it's kind of a rough analysis to what a sociologist might do in a class analysis. You break it into 3 groups. You have a lower group, a middle group, and then an upper group. At that level, it seems to work. But I want to suggest some things for further analysis, maybe for another year or something, but that AEG could do is where I've seen problems is in the 200% and below. In other words, the social programs that help people have some traction if your income is 100 to 200% of poverty. They actually do help people. If you get below that, you have a lot of problems between 50 and 100%. If you're below 50% of poverty, you're just in trouble, and the programs, unless they're really extreme, including a lower rate tied to your income, like say 2% of income is your rate, period. The programs don't work. All of the programs I've examined fail for people 25% of poverty or below. Because at that level, there's not much a utility can do. The house is under such strain economically that families are coming apart, basically. And it's way beyond what a utility can address, even though they're in the program and even though they're addressed in the program. So I'll just say that I know that the thing right now is to try to take care of people who historically have been repressed and oppressed by our social order. And this does a rough cut at that. But I think, maybe in another year or sometime, it'd be good to go below that and then look at how programs can be addressed towards people at 200% and below. And then break that into at least 3 groups, maybe 4 groups, maybe 5, I don't know, and then study there like you're studying here. Although for that kind of analysis, you would need to have actual household data. This privacy thing, I've never cared about very much. That's something that came in after I started doing analysis. When I started doing analysis, you just asked for the data and got it. Now there's a lot of sensitivity to privacy, but the privacy sensitivity is not really based on people's feelings. It's based on protection of markets and privacy laws that were put in to protect markets. In other words, it's generated by the capitalist system, not by the social needs of individuals and families. So it's kind of a fake thing. We have to follow it because it's the law, but we also have to get around it somehow to get to a finer level of data. So those are my comments. I think this study does what it's supposed to do, and it's doing it well at a sort of a 3-group analysis level. But I think the real problems are within the 0 to 200, or 0 to 250 or something like that. That's just comments. That's all.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, Gil. And to your point, what we're trying to understand here is what the energy savings potential is in this particular analysis. And you make a good point. I mean, perhaps there's a fraction of what we call low income where the saving potential disappears because of the socioeconomic situation that they're in. So that will be some good consideration to take moving forward.
Yeah, the thing is that all of the helping programs fail at the very bottom, like certainly for under 25% of poverty, they just can't handle it. And generally below 50% of poverty, the helping systems fail, but not always. Sometimes people are able to use them. But they do a pretty good job if you're 100% of poverty or 200% of poverty, because then you have enough, I don't know what you want to call it, capital or what, you have enough resources in the household that then they can take a little bit of external resource or a lot of external resource for a short period, and then they kind of move from there. But below that, people are just sort of ground down, and it would take some kind of change, like changing the rate so that everybody got a certain amount of gas without paying, and then you bill for the use above that. That'd be the only way. That's the only way I can think of to actually include the lowest income people. Anyway, okay, great, thanks.
All right. Well, thank you, Gil. So the next couple slides I have are an update on where we are in the CPA for phase 2. Just starting with a review of the objectives. Now, we had done phase 1 of this cycle of the CPA actually at the end of last year, where we did a baseline update and brought our foundational information up into 2019, which was an update from the 2017 CPA we'd done before. So back in October, we had done a presentation on phase 1, and that included mention of these goals for phase 2, which was to update the baseline just one more time to make sure we got 2020 actual consumption into place, and also included the Cascade Resource Planning Team's assumptions for I like the phrase you use, Monica, the recovery. Is that?
Yeah, that's the phrase we're using.
Okay. So we have that adapted into our models to make sure that we're consistent with resource planning as far as the foundation of potential. This is the phase where we did a comprehensive update to the assumptions for the actual measures themselves, most of which were not updated in phase 1. And this was our opportunity to revisit non-energy impacts and possible resource value test sensitivity. And we've had some additional conversations with Cascade around that. Since October, we added a little bit more scope, which of course you've already seen some of this, looking at residential by income level and revising the residential market characterization and all the potential analysis to include that. So to date, we have done the income level analysis, and we just shared that results with you. We've done the baseline update and included the COVID-19 impact and recovery schedule. We've updated the residential measures and characterizations. They're including the income analysis that we've already done. We're still working on those runs. They're in internal QC. But commercial and industrial, since we weren't adjusting their markets, we were able to start on those earlier. Those measures have been fully updated, and we have some draft potential to present to you today. And speaking of, here we go. Now this is very high level. This slide is the 1,000-foot view, and on the next slide I have top measures and just a brief look at how the things have changed since phase 1. And of course there will be some opportunity for additional questions. But just at a very high level, the table above, we're looking at 1,000 therms there. So in terms of just total cumulative savings, it's ramping up pretty high. You've got up to, if I do the multiplication in my head, about 2.8 million therms savings are economic under UCT by 2025. That goes up to 9.1 million therms by 2030. And you can see the more theoretical levels, the achievable technical and technical potential are, of course, much higher than that. As a percent of baseline, which is how we tend to anchor things, it's one of the easiest ways to keep an eye on it. It works out to an achievable technical of just shy of 1% per year, about 0.9% per year over the 20-year horizon, which is what the council's planning cycle is. And about 0.6% per year is cost effective under UCT. Now, cost effective CNI potential is a bit lower than it was in phase one. There's a few factors that are influencing that. You can see the chart in the bottom left there, just showing the two phases at these different key years. A lot of this has to do with the updates to the to major measures. A lot of costs have increased since the 2016-2017 data that we had available before in the previous CPA cycle. There's, of course, we've updated with CBSA 2019. So building stock information has been updated. There are more recent buildings in. So stocks turned over, buildings are renovated. So the remaining market for building shell and what portion of the market these older buildings are is shrinking over time. And if we look at top measures, just some color coding here. Everything highlighted green was also in the top 20 during phase one and in the previous CPA. And as you can see, that is actually most of the chart. There is one purple line, which is right in the middle of the pack. It's only about 3% of overall CNI potential, but that is replacing the radiators for hydronic or steam heating in some of these older commercial spaces where maybe they're not ready to replace their whole boiler system. We have had a conversation with TRC about this. It's probably it's down the line. Most of the customers who are ready for upgrading their heating system are going to upgrade their whole boiler, which you can see is up there at number 3. But if you have some stragglers or these smaller office spaces, or especially if they only really have access to a couple of offices out of a whole office building, they might be willing to replace a radiator. They're very inexpensive, and you can get some decent savings out of them. But most of the others are pretty much just updated potential for measures that are already pretty familiar. There is still opportunity for weatherizing commercial buildings, the older commercial building space. Boiler replacements, of course, are still a big option. You get down into food prep equipment with fryers, number 5. Number 4, the unit heaters, that's more in industrial facilities or some open space like warehouses. But those are the ceiling units that are a little baffled. But the upgrade there is things that have little infrared adjustments and ceramic baffles to help distribute the heat better. I don't want to read through the whole laundry list. We'd be here all day, but I can leave it up if there are any questions about specific measures that are on this list or where they're at on it.
I don't think I had a question about specific measures, but I did have a question back on the previous slide where you noted that costs have increased from 2016 and 2017 data that you used to be using.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious which costs those were. Were those like the actual technology costs, or are we talking about like some sort of soft costs or something like that?
Those are specifically technology costs, yeah.
Okay.
Especially for equipment upgrades. Obviously, there are some cases where, especially for condensing equipment, you have more labor to put in maybe the high efficiency technology. But for most equipment, putting in a high efficient fryer versus a low efficiency fryer is the same amount of work. So that's kind of a wash on the soft costs. A lot of our cost information comes from the Energy Information Administration, which every few years publishes an update to a lot of assumed costs and efficiency levels. Back in 2016, we were still working with the 2014 reference information from EIA. They did a new data collection set in 2018 and published it late 2019, early 2020 that we had access to now. And then, of course, we also take the most up-to-date information, anything that RTF has gathered, especially on building shell measures. That takes priority, of course, over a national source.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so next steps still to come on the CPA. As I mentioned, residential potential, our models are running. We're just doing our internal review to be able to start sharing with that. We think it will be ready by end of month to share in draft form, similar to what you just saw for CNI. We're not completely sure what format that will take yet. We'll have to work that out with Cascade. Potential for all sectors, we expect to be final in mid-May, with the final report being provided to Cascade by June 1st so that they can meet their filing deadline on the 15th.
Thank you, Ken. Are there any questions so far for Ken or Eli? We do have a couple things I wanted to address from the CPA agenda as well, or from the agenda on the CPA. There we go. But before I jump into that, I wanted to give anyone an opportunity to. Any final questions? I think, Philip, your hand might have been up at one point and then it went down before I had a chance to see if you had a question or comment.
No, thank you, Monica. No, it was just earlier when Gil was chatting about, I forget now. I've been doing a lot of other things since then, but it was just a comment on low income and how our participants have been acting in this last year. And I wanted to bring up the fact that one of the things that we saw across all income levels was a request for ESKs, and that had that had a huge impact on our program over the previous year. And I just wanted to point out that customer behavior, I think across all income levels, was really predicated on a lot of uncertainty, and it affected programs disproportionately because of that. They're looking for how can I create the most savings in my life at the cheapest possible price point, because the economy itself is so uncertain. That's all I wanted to bring up.
Oh, thank you, Philip. I'm not hearing any other questions, so if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the agenda here, Ken, and there are just one or two additional things I just wanted to mention as part of the CPA. We should be seeing the agenda again. We have the, thank you for the confirmation. On March 26th, I believe, we did hold let's call it an ad hoc CAG meeting for interested parties on the non-energy impacts. And we talked about, I think we have Amy on the call, I think, and Jennifer and Andrew. I believe those are the folks that were on it, along with obviously the AEG folks and Cascade. We were just kind of going over where the CPA is at with the non-energy impacts, as well as the RBT, and where the commission is at with direction on RBT inputs. So we have the key takeaways here. Commission staff would like to see an RBT sensitivity. And at this point, using a proxy percent adder was probably appropriate, recognizing the commission will take a deeper dive into the specific costs and benefits this next year. And then I think, Andrew, please do correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Jennifer was saying starting in the summertime, and it would likely be mostly electric focused, but could be applicable to gas as well.
Yeah, I think we are still going to be doing that. I don't know the specific time frame or if it is still the same as what she noted a couple of weeks ago. So
okay. We did touch base on it, and so we'll keep informed and ask Andrew, you as our representative from the commission, to let us know if there's something that we need to be engaging with, or as it occurs. If you'd so kind, we'd appreciate it. And then, thank you. And then in the meantime, AEG is going to review the previous 20% assumption, ensure it's still appropriate, and that's what we'll be using as a placeholder likely, with the caveat that we'll consider applying a higher percentage for the low-income customers. And then we have the notation here as well to the TRC, non-energy benefits, that we're using in our annual report reconciliation as well. So I won't read through it all, but you can see the notes, and please do follow up with us if you have any questions on what that discussion was like. Or essentially, Cascade committed at the beginning of this year to make sure that our CAG was informed on a regular basis on the progress for the CPA, because it is kind of an expedited timeline, making sure that we do get it submitted to the commission in time for them to review it and then hopefully approve it so that we can use it for our conservation planning moving into next year, which will be our first biennial conservation plan. So that's kind of a reminder of the impetus behind the timing on our CPA this time around. So I think we've already talked about, Ken went over the overview of the potential comparison to phase one, those top 20 CNI measures. We talked about the next steps as far as when we get the residential. I'm planning on sending it via email to CAG members and asking if there's any conversation that they'd like to have for another ad hoc discussion. But I think at this point, I don't have any specific plans as far as the CPA is concerned. In the development stage, once we have the final CPA, I imagine we'll want to hold a discussion with the full CAG as interest and time allows, of course, for members to present the final results from the CPA. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I'm not hearing any. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Let me do kind of a reality check here. It's 10:15. We're on until noon. We can take a quick 10-minute break if you'd like for drinks, etc., and then dive in, or we can do the next one and probably get the break a little closer to 11 o'clock. Anybody have a specific preference?
Monica,
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I would like a break now.
Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't mind one now and maybe a quick one later on as we get closer to noon, if that's possible.
I don't know, Andrew. That's asking a lot.
I know. I'm pretty insistent. Yes.
Yeah. Nope. This works. We'll do that. And then I would like to mention as well, I think we also have Liz on the call now. Liz, would you like to do an intro real quick before we go out on break?
Yeah, sure. I don't want to be the thing that keeps people from break, but hi, I am Liz. I am new with the Department of Commerce, State of Washington. I am their new Senior Energy Policy Specialist working on energy efficiency in the built environment, a little bit of grid modernization and demand response. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be with this group.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to welcome you and to get some insights directly from Commerce. That'll be great. We've got a lot of topics we want to talk about this year, so I'm really, really excited to have you. And then I think Corey Dahl joined us as well. Corey, do you want to do an intro real quick, and then we can head off to break?
Yeah, my name is Corey Dahl. I'm an analyst with the Public Counsel Unit of the Attorney General's Office.
Thanks so much, Corey. All right, I'm going to go ahead and say we can take a break for 10 minutes. Let's be back here around 10:26. And I'm not sure if I've lost Ken and Eli, but if I haven't, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate the presentation and your willingness to be on the calls with us. So, all right, everyone, thanks so much. We'll check back in 10 minutes. All right, 10:26. I'm going to go ahead and start back up here. Brady, are you back on the line?
I sure am.
All right, so we're going to do our Q1 update, and I will ask Brady to go ahead with the commercial highlights, please.
So overall, Q1 for the program fell quite far short of goal. Our goal was largely based on a custom project that we had expected to close in Q1, and actually initially had expected to close in 2020. However, it has been pushed back to Q2. and because of that, we fell. Let's see, we finished with 48,162,000 therms. The goal for the quarter was 242. Let me get the exact number. I had everything up. There we go, 242,571. So that project is, on the whole, it accounts for 500. It's expected to bring in 510,000 therms. We are using 178,000 of those therms towards the 2021 project or program goal. So on the whole, the program, if you remove the 178,000 therms 483 that we expected to close in Q1, we've hit about 75% of the goal with 48,162. So not spectacular, but we did have some positive impacts on the program and building for the future, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But that large project that we've talked about for, gosh, it's almost been a year now, is a regenerative thermal oxidizer. I always have a hard time saying that. Project that is expected to save roughly 510,000 therms, as I mentioned, and deliver a $685,000 check to the customer. It is a return customer that has done projects with us in the past, and is really a good example of how our continued outreach to our past customers, as well as continued outreach in the midst of COVID, has really increased our visibility into the program's future. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the positives that came from Q1, but wanted to give anybody a chance to ask any questions about the numbers that were achieved in quarter one.
So I guess I have one. It's possible we've had this discussion and I'm not remembering it, but I'm a little puzzled in terms of the terminology that you're using here, where you say that the total therms expected for the total therms expected for this, the 178 and change thousand therms will count towards the program goals. Can you maybe explain a little bit more how you're parsing that out here?
Sure. So, and Monica might want to chime in as well, but we, for lack of a better term, we didn't want to just say, oh, well, we're getting 510,000 of the 578,000 that were for the yearly goal. We didn't want to just account for all of those in the yearly goal. We wanted to continue to push ourselves. So we identified roughly 400,000 therms in addition to that project to complete the 483,000 therms that are expected this year. That increase is about a 50% increase over the 2020 goal and number. So, Monica, do you want to chime in or add anything to that?
Yeah, thank you, Brady. So, Andrew, we didn't want to take the one large project that we know is coming in and say, okay, we're done, and step back for the rest of the year. So what we challenged TRC to do is to take, recognize that, yes, that 510,000 therms is going to come in this year, but only take a small portion of that and account for those savings within their quarterly goals for the year. And then take the additional, as Brady said, 400,000 and have that be their goal to achieve additional savings on top of it. When we're talking about the official goal, as far as our load map model says is how much you can achieve for the year. The expectation is that TRC is going to exceed that goal this year because of this large commercial project. With that in mind, we wanted to make sure to set TRC up for the following year to say, okay, we know to keep the momentum going, to make sure that we're still looking for those additional opportunities, we're still growing the program, and not strictly relying on a single project coming in.
Okay, I think that all makes sense, and that makes it a little clearer. I mean, obviously, I assume you're still going to, let's say we get a year from now in early 2022 and you're ready to put in your 2021 annual report, the whole savings will still end up getting reported there. But I think I think I get where you're coming from now in terms of what is counting and what isn't. And it kind of sounds a little more along the lines of like what you're considering. I guess I'll, in air quotes, I'll say counting towards what TRC's expected goal should be, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think that makes more sense to me now. Thanks.
Yeah, and just kind of it's in recognition of the fact that largely this program has been it's met goal when there's been a really large project and or several large custom projects, and we've really tried to adjust our thinking to build a baseline of standard projects and smaller custom projects, so that if the commercial industrial program does not see a large project, we still have visibility to goal or a good opportunity to reach goal or get somewhere near. So we're trying to keep motivated and challenged to not just rest on your laurels for one large project. So,
and I'm sure the commission would appreciate you not resting on your laurels. So.
Of course. So we also, one of the things that, in recognition again of that mindset of being more proactive as opposed to reactive, that's been kind of one of my themes since I started working on the program almost 4 years ago now. We really tried to build out recognition and identifying projects much earlier in the pipeline process. That's been a gradual shift from, we hope projects come in as opposed to reaching out and having conversations with customers and building that pipeline by encouraging them and identifying those projects. So we've identified, in addition to that 510,000 therm project, we've identified an additional 472,000 therms. Out of that 472,000, 178,483 are that large project. So roughly 298,000 therms, something like that, that we've identified in projects that we still expect to close in 2021. And again, that's really one of the, I don't want to say benefits of COVID, but one of the impacts that has been a positive impact, at least on the commercial industrial side, is that our outreach has increased. We're about 36% higher in terms of outreach in Q1 of 2021 versus Q1 of 2020, when the impacts of COVID were very minimal, certainly minimal at the beginning of the quarter, and then a little more of an impact towards the end of the quarter. But we've really found a way of continuing outreach without being physically present. So a lot more phone calls, a lot more emails. In-person visits have not gone to zero, but have certainly dipped pretty significantly in the end of 2020, and then of course 2021. So, but we found creative ways, website research, a lot of data analytics tools in terms of identifying customers, kind of using that adaptive management strategy in 2020, and then have kind of carried it over into 2021 to find new customers and outreach to those customers, whether they're have been impacted, more, have been more impacted by COVID or, less impacted by COVID, because maybe they're deemed an essential business or something else. But we've really doubled down on our outreach. So I don't say double down because it's a 33% increase, but thirded down on our outreach. So, so we've had really good success with having conversations with decision makers, sharing the incentives, and then I'll talk a little bit about the kind of strategies to come out of the COVID-19 impacts as well. But yeah, so that's been one of the big things, is that identifying those projects. A lot of those are geared towards Q3 and Q4, some custom projects and a lot of standard projects as well. So that's been a really good positive. We have, in regards to our outreach and kind of thinking creatively, we've done 2 initiatives and we're working on several others, but one is called, as Monica hinted at earlier, Recovery. And this was something that we continued to highlight with specifically projects that are completed in 2021, where if they complete 3 or more measures, we're going to increase the incentive amount. It's a relatively modest increase, but it's a really good opportunity and a really good opportunity to share with customers and get them to think creatively and hopefully encourage them to invest as we begin to come out of COVID. So maybe they had planned to replace 2 of their fryers, but the third one's, close to on its last leg. So maybe the recovery and offering that additional 10% incentive will encourage them to replace that third fryer. Or if they're replacing their boiler and doing wall insulation, maybe that will encourage them to look at roof insulation or attic insulation or some other third measure that would get them more motivated to invest. And we also have kind of looked at it in recognition of the fact that some businesses have unfortunately gone under, and there will be, or it's expected there will be, investment made by outside groups, new owners, that kind of thing. And so maybe this is their opportunity to reinvest, and hoping our recovery program encourages them to look at a more whole building solution as opposed to just an individual, one individual measure. We've had a couple of projects already come in through recovery. And are starting Google AdWords campaigns, bill inserts, other outreach opportunities to promote that program. Any questions on that? Cool. One other area we're doing is a food service drawing, and this is kind of to promote, again, the businesses that were most deeply impacted by COVID. And that is, we're doing a drawing in each zone, each of the climate zones, climate zone 1, 2, and 3. And that promotion ends at the end of this month, and we will be doing the drawing at the beginning of May. So we reached out to roughly 1,900 customers that we identified through some more data analytics to promote this. So we're doing 1 fryer giveaway in each zone.
Did the participants have to, do anything to participate, to somehow throw their hat in the ring, or?
Yes, so they had to email, a special email address was created for this specific promotion. So they have to email in their interest and participation. We're sitting at roughly 50 entrants right now with 9 days still to go. Cool. We also, as you're likely aware, the Commercial Industrial Program launched a midstream program. Midstream is where we give the incentive or offer the incentive directly to the distributor, who then sells it to the contractor at the discounted rate, and then the contractor delivers it to the customer at the discounted rate. So it's a model of being able to capture savings and really promote at a higher level than just at the contractor or the customer level. We have yet to have a project. We launched this in August. We've yet to have a project come through, but we do currently have 3 different vendors enrolled in the program, and recently added Gensco, which is one of the larger, if not the largest, distributor in the state. And they have been very active in promoting. We just added them, I believe it was the beginning of March. So we've been in discussions with them about how to set up assisting and making this program as simple as possible. But they have a lot of contractors that they work with in CNG territory, and we're going to continue to promote that midstream program. The midstream program is geared specifically to tankless water heaters. So while there are a lot of distributors in the state, there are a lot who don't participate in tankless, and then there's also a lot who don't participate specifically in commercial tankless. So it's been really fun and enjoyable for me to outreach and try to find all of those distributors who do participate in that. So again, it's been a positive. The midstream program, it's opened up a lot of conversations, and so far we've seen, good interest from both the distributors and contractors.
Thank you, Brady. Is there anything specific you want to highlight? I think you already did, but highlight on the tables graph on the agenda, or shall I scroll through?
Nothing specific. I think it's interesting. We're tracking towards somewhere between 89 and 90% of goal. That is both when you consider the pipeline expected growth for standard projects as well as identified growth or identified projects for custom. So it's, the goal increased pretty significantly this year, and certainly that large custom project will have, a big impact on us achieving goal. But I think we've also done a really good job in changing up tactics and changing up the way we approach the market due to COVID, and that's starting to pay some dividends. So.
Yes, absolutely. Any questions from the group? Further questions on the commercial program? Okay. Not hearing any, so I'll go ahead and move into the residential. Thank you, Brady. I really appreciate the insights and the kind of update on where the program's at and some of those very specific efforts you're putting in place to address some of the needs of the business community in hopes of increasing that uptake on the prescriptive side. And then, of course, the continued effort. That large commercial project is not a small lift on TRC's part. It's been quite a while in the process, and there's a lot of analysis and coordination and everything on the back end. So it's not just a given. It's a lot of work to get that amount of savings. So really appreciate it, and really looking forward to seeing that hopefully close out in Q2.
Surely. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you. All right, so I will fess up to a typo in the version of the agenda that I sent out to the group. I have March 2021 here because I updated it because I saw it this morning, but I actually had the notation through December because you had used last quarter's template. So my apologies. This is data through March 2021. Cascade's residential program had a really strong first quarter. We took a look at what the savings goal was for the year. It's 471,000 and change therms, which is a pretty significant number. That's in excess of what we achieved last year. So with that in mind, we broke it up into, every week of the year to see how much we were going to need to process to be able to meet goal. So we've had a really concerted effort in this first quarter to make sure that we're averaging about 100 rebates paid a week. And of course, that's an average. It's not happening every week. Some weeks we're doing more, but we're really pushing for that 100, which is a higher efficiency in production really than we've done to date on the residential side. It's a lot to ask to try to get the team to process all of that through, especially if you consider COVID with it is bouncing back, so that's really helpful. There's still lag time from getting data. People are still out of work. There's still a lot of stuff going on with that. So considering that, and then the amount of uptake and processing, it's been a really good first quarter. We are expecting to see a decline in the new builders. You won't see it really in the first quarter because we had a carryover from last year, the end of last year, when we had a large influx of builder rebates come in. So we actually had quite a bit processed through this first quarter of those builder new homes applications. From that, I will actually now move over to the agenda. So You can see we've saved approximately 147,000 therms in the first quarter. Pretty robust queue still remaining to process. We also have, I guess that about 66,000 therms worth in the queue. Of course, it's an estimate, but we're averaging 113 therms per rebate right now. That ebbs and flows depending on like how many new homes. The new homes applications are typically going to be higher therm savings than you would see for, say, a single furnace. So we have that large influx of builders with new homes. The first couple of months of 2021 are likely going to show a higher per therm savings per application than you may see in the rest of the year. So just something to kind of keep in mind. With the savings that we've already achieved, combined with the existing queue, we're probably about 45% of our residential goal right now. So that's encouraging. There's still a lot to go. We still need to make sure that we're getting these applications in around, I'd say probably April. Carrie, keep me honest here, but I think around April is when we would start to see a little bit of a not as high of rebate submittals, and then as you go into the summertime is when you would see it ebb a little bit more even. So we're still robust. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, thank you, Monica. The shape of our demand back to when we brought the program in house does show a dip in the summer, but under COVID. The rules seem to be changed, the laws of physics, and so we just really think a couple of things. One, the fact that people continue to stay at home is really driving more interest in energy efficiency. Also, the staff has done a phenomenal job in outreach and awareness and education and conversations. And with the builders. And so I think the builders right now have, we know that there's going to be some code impacts, but John's been in touch with the builders and they still have quite a few homes that they're working on. So we may not see that, there may be a bit of a lag time before we see that decrease. It might show up later in Q3 versus what we would expect as a little bit earlier.
That's an excellent point. Thank you, Carrie. So I will scroll on down here. We've got our residential therms achieved by month, as we said. We're well above the 3-year running average that we typically compare ourselves to. Currently, based on trends that we're seeing, we're forecasting about 472,000 therms. So we're forecasting to meet the residential goal. That's dependent on a couple different things, of course. What does that builder queue look like? What our application influx is going to be, and what can we really process through? We've been really focused on processing. As I mentioned earlier in this meeting, we brought Jocelyn Moore onto the team. Jocelyn's primary focus is really getting those rebates processed into the system. So that's a really good customer service consideration, is making sure that their submittal dates are within our 8 to 12 week time frame, with a preference, of course, towards the 8 weeks whenever possible. So they submit it to us, we get it reviewed, we get it processed, we get any missing information, and we get them their check within 8 to 12 weeks is the ideal. So we're within that category right now. You can see the goal, same thing there. We've already talked about that. With the monthly application receipts, as I hinted at and mentioned, and we talked about in previous discussions, October we had a pretty big influx. A single builder applied for quite a few rebates. We don't think that's going to happen again this year necessarily. So this particular table, we're going to kind of revise it so that October doesn't show a spike this year, and we'll make sure that in the next, I guess that would be Q3 meeting, that it's reflected a little differently. Any questions, comments about the residential program Q1 update? And Andrew, do you want me to send you a separate update, or can this serve as our April update for the year. Well, March, I guess.
I think this is fine.
Okay, thank you. All right. I don't think I'm hearing anybody else, so I can move on to our annual report update. We've already prefaced this a little bit when we talked about the low-income program and the current status of the savings that we've achieved through the low-income program this last year. I can happily tell you that the annual report will be in your email, hopefully. April 30th is what I'm looking at. We need to have it to the CAG by May 1st, but May 1st is Saturday, so you should have it April 30th. I'm not sure if that's going to just be a straight email or if we might send it via BizCom, fairly large file. We've got all the numbers pretty much ticked and tied. We've got a draft. We're just cleaning up the draft so that we can get it sent out by the end of this month. Annual report's good. It's reflecting, what we've talked about. While the commercial industrial did not meet goal because of the COVID, I mean, that's the big driver. Reduction in commercial business as a whole. We see the residential program did meet our goal. You can see our targets here. We've got the tables there. Target was 327. We met on the residential side 383. Commercial, we got, I think it was 68 or 69% of goal. And then on the low income side, we achieved 9,000 therms to the 11,000 that we had estimated. Again, a lot of those agencies were closed or not entirely closed, but unable to perform the level of work they typically would because of COVID. As far as our direct benefit to customer, we got a really, really high rate. We had 70% direct benefit to customers versus the admin and essentially program delivery costs of about 34%. So that's a really good number, showing that the customers are getting, the benefit out of the costs that we put into the ratepayer funds anyway to deliver the program. Our overall budget was about 5.7 million, or excuse me, not the budget, the actual expense was about 5.7 million. We did underspend from what the budget was in most cases because of the difference in participation levels. So that's expected at that point. Admin costs did not exceed what we thought that they would be for the year, so that's always encouraging. There was a lot less travel, and it wasn't just travel, but some of the outreach that we would do in person, attendance at conferences and that kind of thing, and not even just conferences, but networking events where we talk about our programs or fairs or community engagement activities, those kinds of things we weren't able to do this year. So we really did pivot for a lot of the outreach that we did. If you'll excuse the phrase marketing, it's not marketing, it's outreach, but along that structure, we're talking about the articles that we wrote and the directory ads that we placed and the home tours that we engaged in remotely, that kind of thing. It was really kind of a pivot this year, and we'll talk about that in the annual report as well. It'll be a separate, document attached to the annual report as it has been in the past. So it's looking really good. Any questions about the annual report? Like I said, I will get it out to the group here by, I guess that's next Friday is the 30th. So we are on task, on our timeline. Don't think I'm hearing any questions. That was actually went a lot faster than I expected. I thought we would talk about the annual report quite a bit more. So okay, if there's no more questions about that, then I will just mention that we have our quarterly meeting schedule. The next one is in July. It's in mid-July. We're going to hold that via Teams. Quarter 4, we're hoping to hold perhaps in Bellingham. We'll see what things look like. Outside of that, then I had 2 more items that kind of came up that I neglected to put on the agenda. So one of them is I wanted to do a real quick base touch on the EM and B work that Cascade said we were going to start doing quarter 2, and then we were going to report out to the Conservation Advisory Group here in quarter 3 and include it in our conservation plan. So I'd like to ask if you would just to kind of give us quick update on where we're at with the little EM&B. We're talking about internal EM&B.
Sure. So this is Chris, and we have pretty much looked into the process, started actually reaching out to customers, updating the survey form and taking data. So we're hoping that in the next few months, that process will pretty much be more streamlined. We've contacted a handful of customers and learned a lot from that process. And so this year should pretty much get that under wraps and control. In the next few months, have a lot more to update for the next CAG meeting.
And Carrie, would you like to provide a little bit of insight into the software that we're using?
Sure. The EM&V, I think everyone knows we've been living this story for a couple of years at least. The E is because of the fact that our statistical sample is small, and so the lowercase e sort of represents the fact that the data is not as robust as would be considered ideal. However, we do feel that it will provide trends. And the commission had asked us to take a look at EM&V and use a third party to conduct that. And so we worked with Nexent to actually the Cascade developed the EM&V program, and then had Nexent create the software platform to support it. And I believe now they're marketing it and selling it to some of the other utilities, according to what they've told us. But essentially, it looks at projects and establishes whether there's a year's worth of usage prior to the energy efficiency installation and a year's worth of data post installation. And the constant is that it's that same premise, same account number. And then we look at the post and pre-usage as it's normalized with heating degree days, and see if we can determine if there's a significant difference. In the meantime, Chris is calling down to understand whether there's been any changes to the household that would effectively blow up whatever those changes were, so that we couldn't attribute them to the energy efficiency implementation. And whenever there's an interactive effect, say a heater, furnace, and insulation, where we wouldn't be able to derive any real intelligence about the savings attributed to the furnace versus the insulation, then that project is removed from the sample set. So we rapidly eliminate many of the projects, and we've had a couple of false starts with some of the data quality that Nexent was dealing with, but we're very hopeful that Chris will be able to get us started on collecting some reasonable sample that we can share with the CAG in Q3.
Thank you, Carrie. Not to put you on the spot or anything, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're very excited to have some data to bring back, and we'll make sure that is on our Q3 agenda. Robin, that's a to-do for us, by the way, or for me mostly. Okay, so outside of the EM&D, I wanted to, oops, sorry, Robin, go ahead.
Nope, I was going to say no problem.
Okay, thank you. So outside of the EM&D, I also wanted to give Alan an opportunity to kind of weigh in on an exciting project that we're engaging in. Alan, do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty excited to talk about this. We more and more we're starting to look at the lens of greenhouse gas emissions and carbon, and how we can do our part to optimize the use of our product. And one of the things that we're looking at right now is net zero energy buildings, net zero energy utilizing natural gas, but pairing it with state-of-the-art technologies to minimize carbon impacts associated with the use of our product. And so what we're looking at right now, we put together a RFP for a pilot project that we're exploring at our Bellingham district office. It's due for renovations anyway. And so we're looking to see whether we're going to be doing renovations or a rebuild. But one way or the other, we've circulated a request for proposals out to about 25 vendors, some of whom are national, many of whom are local to the Bellingham area, asking them to put together a energy audit, not just energy, but looking at the ways that we can take this old commercial building and renovate it to something with as minimum greenhouse gas or carbon impact as possible, smallest footprint possible, still utilizing gas and space and water heat, but pairing that with potentially solar, looking toward geothermal options, really just looking at the whole world of opportunities to make this building as environmentally sustainable as possible. And so the goal of that isn't just this building. So we're looking at this in terms of a demonstration project to test technologies to see what possibilities are out there, with the hope that we can learn some things from it and, down the road, see if we can utilize this information in support of our community and support of our trade ally contractors to help them better understand how to build gas as efficiently as possible. And so there'd certainly be a learning component to it. And right now, the RFP that we circulated is for the auditing phase. And so at this point, we just want to understand what it would take to get to net zero energy, whether it's going to make sense for this to be a retrofit or new construction, technologies that could make sense from a best cost standpoint, and also from a technology testing standpoint, if there's things that are near market that might be worth kicking the tires on. And so we're going to be doing that for phase one, just have somebody do the audit. Phase two would be then developing a roadmap for us to be able to implement a project. And then from there, we would start looking toward who would actually be putting this together for us, actually implementing it. And then it would be, like I said, it would be a learning project, ongoing, probably with some monitoring and EM&V component to it. And so very excited to losing my voice. Very excited to be announcing that right now. And yeah, so we'll see where it goes, but we can certainly keep the advisory group informed as we move forward. And of course, if you have any thoughts on things that you'd like to see tested, we would love to hear your ideas. Yeah, go drink some water.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, we're partnering with some of our local groups within Bellingham too. So talking to the Energy Institute and all that, really trying to leverage it and using it as a pilot for how else we can really promote more of that, renewable paired with responsible natural gas, responsible, efficient, essentially is what I was getting at, natural gas use. So really excited to see where that goes. I will also mention as part of our conservation potential assessment, we, or I probably pushed AEG quite a bit to look at, additional measures where we could really, maybe they're not quite cost effective yet, or maybe they're not highly available yet, but looking and making sure they're included within our structure of the CPA, solar paired with natural gas. Water heat is one of those. Just what new technology is out there that's going to help push the envelope a little bit beyond where we have before. So it's kind of an exciting trend, and I'm excited to see us be able to implement some of that, if at all possible, within our Bellingham district office.
Monica?
Yeah, go ahead, Carrie.
I'd just like to add, well, one, I would like to recognize the technical contribution from your staff, some of the building specialists to help create the RFP. The other benefit I see from this is the building usage intensity that is being mandated for the state of Washington. I think going through this exercise really helps us gain more insight into the process and the pitfalls, and may help us help support our customers as we go forward in the clean energy program.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. That's an excellent point. Kind of gives us an opportunity to model what we're preaching. Andrew, did you have a question?
Yeah, so just a quick one. Sounds like an interesting project, but I'm curious what your timelines are, both for phase one and then for the actual construction part.
All right. So I think end of April is when we've requested the vendors to submit their proposals. And so so far we've heard back from 2 vendors that are very interested in submitting proposals, and I suspect we'll be hearing back from more. After that, we're going to be taking a few weeks to review them, and we'll be hopefully aiming toward sometime in May for the building audit. Maybe a little bit later, a little bit sooner, but we're aiming toward May for phase 1.
Okay, and then any thoughts on phase 2? Is that going to be like a late this year, early next type of thing?
I would think so. In fact, our district team seems to is hoping for some renovations sooner rather than later. So I would envision it taking place this year. I think there's definitely some momentum, enthusiasm internally. And then, of course, we'll want to take the time to continue the great discussions that we've been having with some of the folks in Bellingham, at the Western Washington University side, make sure we have those conversations so that the folks that may be interested in learning some things from the demonstration have an opportunity to weigh in on what they would like to see in terms of, technology or monitoring or those pieces. But yeah, I would say phase 1 and phase 2 would be complete at the very least by the end of this year.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds interesting.
Thank you, Alan. As odd as this is, I don't have a lot of other things to talk about. Not that I couldn't fill the next 49 minutes, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Are there any additional questions, comments relating to the agenda or just program, Cascade's program in general.
I don't think so right now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Andrew. I will say, please keep an eye on your email boxes. Like I said, we'll be sending the information for the annual report out for CAG review on the 30th. I typically try to give about 3 weeks if I can. We have to get it back to the commission and file it with the commission. I think we're going to probably do it Monday the 31st. Oh, wait, no, that's Memorial Day. So I would guess May 28th, actually, which is a Friday. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at the calendar as I'm talking. I shouldn't be doing that. I'm guessing we'll probably need responses back the week, maybe Monday the 17th from our CAG members. So that's actually only about 2 weeks of review time. Well, I'll look at that and see if there's any way I can push that out a little bit more to give you more time. But as always, we welcome recommendations, thoughts about the annual report. It's a fairly robust document, but nowhere near what the conservation plan is. So hopefully you'll be able to work it in just to kind of review it, send us any notes, and then we'll be able to update that last week and a half or so in May, and then submit it to file it with the commission as we're required to. So with that, I will say thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. This has been a great call. I really appreciated the conversation around the low-income program sector analysis that we had AEG perform for us. That's kind of a new approach. So it should really help us inform us on how to work with those agencies and look at what that potential really is. And then I think we'll take an action item to follow up with Sean Collins and provide him some feedback on what we talked about, see what his insights are related to that sector analysis and working with the agencies and how we take that moving forward. I imagine we'll review our actual program deemed savings as well as for the low income based on the results from the CPA and go from there. So exciting stuff. Well, thank you, everybody. With that, I'd say have a great day. I hope you get some sunshine, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, and all presenters. Great presentation today. Thank you.